Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. We have some breaking news. UFC President Dana White announced the coaches of the next season of The Ultimate Fighter. It will be Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, and they will fight after the end of the season. And this is going to be my reaction as well as my early prediction for Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. Now, this is one of those things where I made a video a couple weeks ago, and I said I did not think this was going to happen. That I thought Conor McGregor was just looking to take some headlines away from it. And ultimately, I was wrong. In that video, and I'll link the video down in the description, I made some solid points for why I didn't think this would come to fruition. I also talked about some reasons that I thought it made sense. We're going to talk about all that in this video, but I wanted to put it in the beginning of the video. I was wrong about Conor McGregor coaching the next season of The Ultimate Fighter, unless somehow between now and whenever they're going to start filming, which should be probably next month, unless somehow it gets canceled, which I don't think it's very likely. So Dana White announced, they came out, they did another like YouTube live stream, Twitter live stream, and Dana White said Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler will be the next coaches, and it will air on May 30th, and it will end on August 15th. He did not announce when Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler will be fighting. I'm going to give you my best educated guess later in the video. But my reaction to this news, to be honest, my first thought when I heard what Dana White said was, thank God it's not Tony Ferguson. The last thing I wanted to see was Conor McGregor versus the dead corpse of Tony Ferguson. You know, forget about The Ultimate Fighter. I'm talking about the fight here. That was my initial reaction. Then I was like, holy crap, this is actually happening, because I really did not. Honestly, I thought maybe there was like a 10 or 15% chance of Conor McGregor being the next coach of The Ultimate Fighter. Who he was going to coach against, I did not know. You know, it was probably going to be Michael Chandler or Tony Ferguson were the most likely scenarios. But I was pretty shocked by the news. You know, I did not expect this to be announced. I thought it was very unlikely for a multitude of reasons. One, I just find it hard to believe Conor McGregor, they're always talking about for the last like 4 or 5 years, you know, whether it be Dana White or John Kavanaugh, they're talking about Conor McGregor getting motivated. Conor McGregor's so rich, he's not motivated to fight anymore. And I just find it hard to believe they're going to get Conor McGregor to leave his home country, come here for a couple months to film, and, you know, tie up all his time as a coach when he likes to go out and party, and, you know, he has a family. People famously like to quote every time Conor McGregor loses, well, Conor's got a family. Like no other MMA fighter has a family. But the point is, I just didn't see the UFC thinking this was a wise decision, and I didn't see Conor McGregor as actually wanting to do this. And I know he said in his Instagram post, talking about The Ultimate Fighter, you know, he said he needs it because it helps him, you know, train and stuff like that, and he needs to be fully immersed and this and that. But to be honest, I did not think this would come to fruition. But it does kind of make sense, because Conor McGregor broke his leg back at UFC 264, which was in July of 2021 against Dustin Poirier. And since then, he's been out. And he removed himself from the USADA testing pool. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's randomized PED testing, okay? He removed himself from that pool. We don't know, but it's pretty much confirmed by Conor himself. He's made some cryptic tweets online, essentially to heal his body. So he's using PEDs, he's using banned substances to essentially help heal his body. He's transformed basically into a ripped heavyweight at this point. And, you know, the morality of that, we can discuss that in another video. I've discussed it multiple times. But essentially, if he wants to fight again in the UFC based on the rules, now the UFC can issue an exemption. He needs to re-enter the USADA testing pool and be in that testing pool for 6 months before he fights. Now the UFC can grant an exemption and let them fight sooner, but it's just a bad look. And the one time they did it for Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar ended up fighting, winning, and then testing positive. And the reason for this rule is so essentially you can't leave the USADA pool, get juiced out of your mind, re-enter the USADA pool, fight real quick while you're still seeing all the effects of the juicing, and then, you know, you basically get a free win, you know, theoretically, because you use those banned substances. That is the reason for the waiting period. Basically, USADA says, you know, at least if we test you for 6 months, whatever potential banned substances you could have used will now be diminished by the time you fight 6 months down the line. So with that being said, that kind of makes sense that the UFC would put him on the Ultimate Fighter, because Conor's still not in the testing pool as far as we know. He has not been tested in 2023. So he said in a tweet, I think back in December or November, that he was probably going to re-enter the testing pool in February. So where does that leave you? That leaves you around August that he could fight. So if he enters the testing pool in the next few weeks, he would be able to fight by that same time in August, And obviously he's not going to fight until after August 15th, because that's when the season ends. They're not going to fight before the season ends. So it kind of makes sense in that respect. It kind of makes sense that the UFC has a brand in the Ultimate Fighter that, is on life support at this point. Nobody watches. Nobody cares. People will tune in for Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. It will be an interesting season. I'm curious, does Michael Chandler continue just brown-nosing Conor McGregor, or does he try to manufacture some drama, talk some crap? I don't know. That remains to be seen. We'll probably see Chandler giving motivational speeches in the locker room, talking about seeing you at the top and this and that. And I know Chandler could not be more elated to get this Conor McGregor opportunity. He's been begging for it. He's been brown-nosing for it. He's been asking for that Dana White privilege literally since he's been in the UFC. And it does make sense. The fight does make sense. We're going to get to the fight here in a second. Will I watch The Ultimate Fighter? Probably not. I'll catch the highlights, if there's anything interesting that goes on, I'm sure it'll be shared around on social media. But is this going to get me to watch The Ultimate Fighter? Probably not, honestly. Let me know down in the comments, will Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler as coaches on The Ultimate Fighter get you to watch? I'm genuinely curious. If you answer one thing, answer that down in the comments. But for me, I love the fight between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, and we're going to get to that in a quick second. But in terms of two men, at a gym, poking fun at each other, playing pranks on each other, talking crap to each other, that really doesn't appeal to me, Don't get me wrong, it makes the fight a little bit interesting, but for me, a high-level fighter versus another high-level fighter, a stylistically fan-friendly matchup versus another stylistically fan-friendly matchup is what gets me excited, and that's where we get to the fight here. Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler is an amazing matchup. Now, I kind of almost didn't want this fight to happen because you have Michael Chandler, talking bad about Arman Tsarukyan, and you have these guys in Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje. And it felt like for a while there, they were kind of ducking all the up-and-coming guys. They only wanted to fight each other. Ultimately, Justin Gaethje ended up accepting a fight with Rafael Fiziev. But I kind of want to see Michael Chandler give an up-and-coming lightweight prospect a chance to become a top 5 guy. But at the end of the day, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler is an amazing matchup. Conor McGregor, say what you will about Conor McGregor, he is one of the most exciting fighters to watch. And I'm not basing that on his personality. I know a lot of people get hyped to see Conor McGregor fight because of his personality. I'm talking about his fight style. There's a lot of guys that have interesting personalities that go out there and aren't a particularly exciting fighter. Conor McGregor, if he never opened his mouth ever, he is one of the most exciting fighters ever in the UFC. He moves forward, he has dynamic striking, he has elite level striking, and he has unbelievable power. And then you have Michael Chandler. If you didn't watch Michael Chandler in Bellator, you need to go back and watch some of those Eddie Alvarez fights. Michael Chandler has pretty much never been in a boring fight. In the UFC, every fight that he's had has been unbelievably exciting. The Dustin Poirier fight at UFC 281, incredible. The Tony Ferguson fight, incredible. And he got that brutal front kick KO where he just knocked Tony Ferguson dead. The fight before that against Justin Gaethje, amazing fight, one of the top fights of the year. The fight against Charles Oliveira for the title, it only lasted 2 rounds. That is one of the best 2-round fights I've ever seen. And then the UFC debut against Dan Hooker. That was quick. That didn't last very long, but Michael Chandler got a first-round knockout. And then you look at Conor McGregor, even the last 2 Dustin Poirier fights where he lost, one where he broke his leg, the other one where he got knocked out, super exciting. The Donald Cerrone fight, okay, what does that really matter? He finished him in the first round. He invented shoulder strikes in that fight. It is what it is. The Khabib Nurmagomedov fight was a domination. But you look at some of these other fights, the Eddie Alvarez fight, what a performance by Conor McGregor. Both Nate Diaz fights were super exciting. The Chad Mendes fight between Conor McGregor and Chad Mendes. Conor McGregor is a super exciting fighter. 22 wins, 19 wins by TKO or KO. For Michael Chandler, 23 wins, 11 wins by knockout, 7 wins by submission. So 18 out of 23 finishes in his pro MMA career of his 23 wins. This is an insane matchup, and I'm really looking forward to it. Honestly, I think this is one of the best fights the UFC can make. I thought it made total sense, and I am so happy that the UFC did not go with Tony Ferguson. You know, if I had to watch Conor McGregor decapitate the dead corpse of Tony Ferguson, I would have been really disappointed. And it would have said a lot about Conor McGregor's confidence. And I think this is a fight that is winnable for Conor McGregor after a long layoff. He'll be fighting for the first time in over 2 years when he eventually fights Michael Chandler. And, you know, this matchup is just perfect. It's perfect. There's everything about this matchup is perfect. There is no way that this fight is boring. And where both guys are in their career, I know a lot of people, you know, look at Michael Chandler. Oh, he's a top-ranked guy. I think he's ranked in the top 5 right now. But this fight really does make sense because you have Conor McGregor, who's won 1 out of his last 4. His one win was against the dead corpse of Donald Cerrone, first-round KO. And Michael Chandler, he's won 1 out of his last 4. His only win being against the dead corpse of Tony Ferguson. And Michael Chandler, he's highly rated in the UFC. But at the same time, his only wins are Dan Hooker and Tony Ferguson. Now, I do believe Michael Chandler is a very good fighter. I do believe he's getting to a point very, very soon where, you know, kind of he's going to have to, you know, he's going to be replaced by some of these top contenders upcoming in the lightweight division. So I think really the time is now. Michael Chandler is like 35, 36 years old. He's taken a lot of damage in his last few fights. The Dustin Poirier fight, he took a lot of damage. Even in the Tony Ferguson fight, he got dropped a couple times. The Justin Gaethje fight, he took a hellacious amount of damage. The Charles Oliveira fight, he got finished. And I really think Michael Chandler is not going to hang around the top of the UFC lightweight division for much longer. And Conor McGregor, I mean, he's already out of the rankings. But if you look at the rankings, I think Michael Chandler is the most winnable fight in terms of a top 10 guy. So I understand why the UFC made this. And if Conor McGregor goes out there and beats Michael Chandler, I think, you know, the UFC is going to throw him right back in the top 5 rankings in the UFC lightweight division. Maybe, I don't know. We're going to talk about that in a second as well. We haven't even got to that. But Conor McGregor will be well on his way to a massive fight if he defeats Michael Chandler. And I think this pay-per-view is going to do very well. Now, what I do find weird is they did not announce the weight class. I'm wondering, is this going to be at welterweight? Is this going to be at lightweight? I believe, and ultimately a lot of people are saying that it'll probably be at welterweight. Conor McGregor's massive. I don't believe it'll be at welterweight. I believe Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler will be in the lightweight division. And I really do believe that the UFC is hoping and praying for a future Conor McGregor versus Islam Makhachev matchup. Can you imagine how big that would be? And if Conor McGregor gets one win, just one win, and he gets it over a top 5 guy within the lightweight division, and it happens at the weight class, Dana White's going to say, the kid's done everything we've ever asked of him. The kid's a 2 division weight champion. The fans want it. He wants it. The champion wants it, even though I don't think Islam would want it, just out of spite for Khabib. It would sell massive pay-per-view buys. It'd probably do over 2 million buys. The storyline of Conor McGregor trying to exact revenge over Khabib Nurmagomedov by taking out Islam Makhachev and taking his title would be one of the biggest fights the UFC can make. And arguably, it may be the biggest fight the UFC can make. Outside of a Khabib Nurmagomedov, Conor McGregor 2 rematch, I think Conor McGregor, Islam Makhachev is the biggest fight the UFC can make. The storyline would be incredible. That's why I believe it will happen at lightweight. If the UFC does Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler at welterweight, then that tells me that Conor McGregor's only looking for fun money fights from here on out. Because he's not going to be competitive towards the upper echelon of the welterweight division. He's not beating Kamaru Usman. He's not beating Leon Edwards. He's not beating Gilbert Burns. He's not beating even Jorge Masvidal, in my opinion. So I don't think it's going to be at welterweight. There is a chance that it is, and then maybe afterwards he goes back down to lightweight. But I think being this fight is so far away, I think it will ultimately be in the lightweight division just because of what I just mentioned. And, you know, as far as an early prediction for this fight, I think a lot of people are going to be picking Michael Chandler. But I look at Michael Chandler, he's taken so much damage. He's so chinny. And I know he's only been knocked out 4 times. But the damage that he's taken, the amount of times he's been rocked, And Conor McGregor's left hand is nasty. And he's so accurate, and Chandler has no fight IQ. And even if Chandler does decide to wrestle, I think he could out-wrestle Conor McGregor. But in a 5-round fight, Chandler doesn't have the gas tank to wrestle for 5 rounds. So for me, I think this is going to be a highly competitive fight. I think Michael Chandler is going to come out and look to fight as he always has, put on a show, and if he gets finished, he gets finished. You know, he didn't have a problem getting finished against Dustin Poirier. He didn't have a problem getting finished against Charles Oliveira. He almost got finished against Justin Gaethje in the 2nd round. I don't think he's going to care. He's going to be happy to be there. He's going to try to put on a legendary performance against Conor McGregor. He's going to go out there swinging haymakers, and maybe he clips Conor and puts him away. We'll see. But I think Conor McGregor ultimately finds that left hand, and I'm going for an early prediction. I'm going Conor McGregor TKO. I just think even with the time off, even with the leg break, even with the shaking confidence, it's hard for me to get past all the damage that Michael Chandler has taken over the course of his career, even when he wins. It's hard for me to imagine him beating Conor McGregor. And if I knew for sure he's going to go in there and wrestle and be super cautious, I think he could win the fight. I think he could take him down, beat him up a little bit here, not be super desperate for takedowns, land some shots on the feet, be super defensively responsible. I never thought I'd say that in a sentence with Michael Chandler. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think he can win. I don't believe he will win. And I almost believe Conor McGregor, you know, he's such a big superstar and Chandler loves him so much. It wouldn't shock me if Chandler wants to go out there and lose. He wants to be a company man. He wants to let Conor McGregor get back in the win column. Because Conor McGregor, it's crazy to me, he has not won a lightweight fight since November of 2016. When he beat Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight title, it's his last lightweight win. Because his only win since then is Donald Cerrone at welterweight. So Chandler probably wants to get Conor McGregor back on the winning track and stay in favor with the UFC. But you never know. I do worry about the long layoff for Conor. I do worry about the broken leg. But I'm still going Conor McGregor via TKO. Now, when is this fight going to happen? I believe this fight will either happen in September or November. I believe September could be UFC 292. I've kind of done some tentative math. I'm not sure if this is going to be accurate, but I believe you could see Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler September UFC 292 in Las Vegas. I think that kind of makes sense. That the show ends in the middle of August. Why not do it on the very next pay-per-view after the show ends? So maybe if there's a pay-per-view late August, it could be on a late August pay-per-view at UFC 292. But if it's not done then, I could see the UFC doing it at, and again, this is tentative math, UFC 294 November at Madison Square Garden. I think that is super likely as well. It would not surprise me if they wait till November. The UFC always does a Madison Square Garden card in November. And Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler as the headliner. What an incredible main event that would be. And it would definitely sell a lot of tickets. And they probably stacked the card as well. They did Conor McGregor, Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight title. They stacked the card underneath of it. I think it was UFC 205. So I think those are the two most likely scenarios. It's going to be September or November. September in Las Vegas or November in Madison Square Garden in New York City. And, you know, I think that's where the fight's going to happen. So let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comments. Who are you picking in this matchup? And are you going to watch The Ultimate Fighter? Don't forget to let me know down below. Don't forget to like the video. And thank you so much for watching.